My name is Sarah, and I have spent the last 10 years believing I was married to the perfect man. If you are listening to this, I need you to understand that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like the person who holds your hand at dinner, the person who kisses you goodbye every morning, the person you share your life with. This is the story of how a hidden camera revealed the darkest secret destroying my family, and how I had to become my father's protector against the man I loved. My father, James, was a strong man. He was a retired firefighter, a hero in our community, and the rock of my life after my mother passed away. But time is cruel. Last year, Dad suffered a mild stroke. He recovered, but he wasn't the same. He became frail, his movement slowed, and his memory started to drift. Living alone in his big house was no longer safe. It was my husband, David, who actually suggested we bring Dad to live with us. I remember crying tears of gratitude when David said it. He told me that family takes care of family. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. For the first few months, things seemed fine. I worked long hours as a nurse, often taking night shifts while David worked from home as a graphic designer. It seemed like the perfect arrangement. David was there during the day and evenings to keep an eye on Dad. But slowly, the atmosphere in our house began to shift. It wasn't anything big at first, just a feeling. Dad became quiet. He used to tell jokes, loud booming laughs that filled the room, but he stopped laughing. He would sit in his armchair by the window, staring outside, looking small and defeated. When I would come home from my shift, I'd ask Dad how his day was. He would just nod and whisper, "Fine." But his eyes told a different story. He looked terrified. Whenever David walked into the room, Dad would flinch. It was a subtle movement, a slight tensing of his shoulders, but I noticed it. I asked David about it and he just shrugged, telling me that Dad's dementia was getting worse, that he was becoming paranoid and confused. I wanted to believe my husband. I needed to believe him. Then came the bruises. One morning I was helping Dad roll up his sleeves to check his blood pressure, and I saw deep purple marks on his upper arm. They looked like finger marks. My heart stopped. I asked him what happened, and he pulled his arm away, trembling. He looked at the door to make sure David wasn't there and whispered, "I fell. I'm just clumsy." But a fall doesn't leave grip marks. A fall doesn't look like someone grabbed you and shook you. The doubt started to eat me alive. I felt guilty for even suspecting my husband. David was charming, well liked by our neighbours, and always so polite. But the fear in my father's eyes was real. I couldn't ignore my gut instinct. I knew I had to know the truth, even if it destroyed my marriage. I bought a small motion-activated camera online. It looked like a standard USB charger. On a Tuesday afternoon, when David was out for groceries and Dad was napping, I plugged it into the outlet facing Dad's bed. I felt sick doing it, like I was betraying the trust of my marriage, but I had to protect my father. The next morning, after David went for his morning run, I took the memory card and locked myself into the bathroom with my laptop. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely click the file. I opened the video from the previous evening. The footage started normally. Dad was lying in bed, reading a book. Then the door opened. David walked in. The man on the screen wasn't the husband I knew. His face was twisted in a sneer, his posture aggressive. He walked over to the bed and slapped the book out of my father's hands. I covered my mouth to stop myself from screaming. I watched in horror as David leaned over my frail 70-year-old father and whispered things I could barely hear, but the malice was clear. "You are a burden," he hissed. "You are ruining my life. Sarah is tired of you. We all want you gone." My father began to cry silently, tears streaming down his face. David didn't stop. He grabbed Dad by the shoulders, the exact spot where I had seen the bruises, and shook him violently. He told him that if he complained to me, he would put him in a home where no one would ever visit. He denied him water, placing the glass just out of reach on the nightstand, and laughed when Dad tried to stretch for it and failed. I sat on the bathroom floor, the laptop burning my legs, sobbing silently. My entire world collapsed in those 10 minutes of footage. The man I had shared my bed with, the man I planned a future with, was torturing the person I loved most in the world. The betrayal felt like a physical blow to my chest, but amidst the heartbreak, a cold fury took over. I wiped my tears. I couldn't be a wife anymore. I had to be a daughter. I didn't confront David immediately. I knew he would manipulate the situation, maybe even hurt Dad before I could get him out. I sent the video file to my email and to my brother who lived in another state, ensuring the evidence was safe. Then I walked downstairs. David was in the kitchen making coffee, whistling a tune. He looked up and smiled. "Morning, honey. Want a cup?" The sight of him made me nauseous. I told him I was taking Dad out for a checkup because he wasn't feeling well. David's eyes narrowed for a split second, but he nodded. "Okay, let me know if you need help getting him to the car." I got Dad into the car, buckling his seatbelt with trembling hands. As soon as we were down the street, I pulled over and hugged him. "I know, Dad," I whispered. "I know everything. He will never hurt you again." Dad broke down, holding on to me like a frightened child. "We didn't go to the doctor. We went straight to the police station. Showing that video to the officers was the hardest thing I've ever done. It made the nightmare official." But the police didn't hesitate. They saw the assault, the elder abuse, the cruelty. They went to the house that afternoon. I wasn't there to see David's arrest, but the neighbours told me he looked shocked, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. He tried to call me from the station, but I never answered. The legal process was grueling. David tried to say the video was taken out of context, that he was just frustrated. But the bruises and the video evidence were undeniable. He was charged with elder abuse and assault. I filed for divorce the same week. The house felt empty without him, but for the first time in months, the air felt light. The heavy blanket of fear was gone. It has been 6 months since that day. Dad is living with me still, but we are looking for a nice assisted living community nearby where he can make friends, as he needs more care than I can provide alone now. But he is smiling again. The light has returned to his eyes. He knows he is safe. As for me, the scars of this betrayal run deep. I question my judgment. I wonder how I could sleep next to a monster and not know. But then I look at my father, safe and at peace. And I know I did the right thing. I am sharing this story because we often ignore the red flags to protect the image of a happy life. We ignore the gut feelings because the truth is too painful to face. But if you suspect someone is being hurt, especially someone vulnerable who cannot speak for themselves, Do not look away. Do not worry about politeness or privacy. Trust your instincts. A camera can be removed, a marriage can end, but the regret of not saving someone you love is permanent. I lost my husband, but I saved my father, and I would make that choice 1,000 times over.